Hey guys, what's going on? KyleHuntFitness, episode 3 of the Flexible Dieting series. And we have a good topic for today. One of my personal favorites, the often debated, always fun to discuss, clean eating versus dirty eating. We needed to get this video done in the series in order to move on to other topics. I'm going to start this off with a question. And it's going to be pretty interactive, and I want to hear what your definition is, because it's going to be very hard for you to answer this question good. And it's, what is clean eating? Think about it. How can you define it? A lot of the gurus try pretty hard, and I've yet to hear a good or even an accurate definition for clean eating. But you often hear that term thrown around. But let's think about this. Let's go through the process of trying to define it. Is it low fat? Because back in like the 80s, that's what everyone says was healthy, low fat diet. So is any type of food source, it's low fat. So that's maybe one option. Is it low carb? Then when the Atkins diet became popular, everybody thought low carb foods were healthy. So you started seeing everybody ordering double cheeseburgers and without the buns, bacon, basically whatever fat they could possibly get down, protein and fat, which, that was what they would consider clean. A decade earlier, that would have been like the worst possible food to eat, because they were all on low fat. But now these people are saying high carb foods, low fat foods aren't the best. So alright, we already have a contradiction. And then with that, is it just saturated fat? Maybe just saturated fat is bad. Well, and you can have a low overall fat, but you can keep your saturated fat down. Maybe that's another option. We've also seen that's not really the case either. Is it the glycemic index? Oh, the glycemic index. Don't we love to talk about that? Maybe it's just low. Maybe carbs are good after all. We don't need to go super low carb, but we better keep the glycemic index carbs low. Maybe that's it. You see where I'm going with this? Like, there's no real definition for it. And then, you can talk about different things like low fat, low carb, low saturated fat, low glycemic index, and that still doesn't even cover it. Because then you have people who think fruit's bad on a fat loss diet because they're afraid of fructose, even though that's kind of a moot point, because those type of people tend to think that all the carbs in fruit are from fructose, which they're clearly not. There's only a small percentage of the overall carbohydrates in a fruit from fructose. Anyways, but that's besides the point. And then you have the paleo crowd that's anti-grains, anti-milk, just meat and sweet potatoes, I guess. So you really have to take a step back and stop thinking of things as clean and dirty. That's what I'm getting at. I posed the question to Mr. Guru, and generally they're going to say one of the things I already said. High-fat foods, high-sugar foods, high glycemic index, or high saturated fat, or if they're pro-paleo, it'll be, because of anti-nutrients and stuff like that, or because our ancestors didn't eat that, or didn't, thrive on those foods. Or they'll also say, clean foods are foods that are closest to kind of how humans are intended to eat them, so it's close to nature. But these are the same people that have no problem taking protein powders, pre-workout supplements, and all that. But they'll say chemicals in your Pop-Tarts, oh, they're terrible. Oh, really? Because there's chemicals in Pop-Tarts. That's why they're bad for you. Well, guess what? That pre-workout you're just jammed 3 scoops down your throat of, that has some chemicals in it too. You think that powder comes red? No, that's red dye. Sorry, but it's the truth. So even that's not even a good example. So what do? Do we just not know what good food is? We don't know what to eat now because we don't know what's clean or what's dirty? No. It's all in context. And as you would guess me to say, it's all about how much. The macronutrients. Macronutrients plus fiber is what the key is. We got to get out of the thought process of this food is good and this food is bad, because any food can be good and any food can be bad. It's just about quantity. So, as we've built upon in the last couple videos, the take-home point is, you got to get your numbers down. You got to get how many calories you're shooting for, how many grams of protein, how many grams of carbohydrate, how many grams of fat per day, and how many grams of fiber per day that your goal is. And your job is to just fit those macros with your food choices. I will say this. There is better protein sources than others. And generally, if you're going with animal protein, you're going to be on the right track. Most research studies are going to show you that protein sources that come from animal sources are better than come from plant sources. And that has to do with maximizing protein synthesis. And really the take-home point is, it's not going to be a huge deal because most people get enough. At the end of the day, it's going to be about how much protein you intake. But if you're a vegetarian, it actually might prove beneficial to have a little bit more protein, because whereas say whey is about 11 or 12% leucine, if you have like 25 grams of whey in a shake, you're going to have about 3 grams of leucine, which is about the threshold to maximize protein synthesis. Now let's take that same protein and have 25 grams of like protein from, you know, rice or beans or something like that. You're probably not going to have 3 grams of leucine, and you're probably not going to reach that threshold to maximize protein synthesis from that meal. So whereas you're going to have to eat more beans and rice, probably upwards of 40 grams or something, or add an animal source. So as long as you're eating animal sources, which I assume most of you are, unless you're a vegetarian or a vegan, then you don't even really have to care about protein quality that much. Whey is great, but it's really not that much different than eggs, chicken, steak, whatever. A lot more convenient, and it tastes pretty good. I love whey. Nothing wrong with it. I'm just saying. You don't really have to decipher between protein sources. Now, carbohydrate sources, this one always starts the debates. What people get stuck on, the fact that all carbs are equal. And all carbs are broken down into glucose. Anyways, it's just, you know, and the problem came from the glycemic index argument. People will say, you know, once that came out, people were stuck on that for so long and so hard and fought that so hard. But the problem is, the glycemic index focuses on foods in isolation. And in real-world application, we never eat foods in isolation. I mean, you know what I mean? In a meal, it changes everything. So it doesn't matter. It becomes irrelevant. As long as you're getting the amount of fiber at the end of the day that you need, carbohydrate sources are largely irrelevant. And then people say, well, what about the micronutrients? Yeah, well, guess what? Most of your clean carbohydrate sources are pretty micronutrient deficient. Like, my favorite one is brown rice. People always say brown rice is like the staple carbohydrate for the clean eating crowd. Look at the nutrition facts of brown rice. It's, for a cup, it's probably I think it's only like 2 grams of fiber, and very, very low micronutrient dense. Yeah, a sweet potato, I will give you this. A sweet potato is a powerhouse. That is a powerhouse carbohydrate. Pretty micronutrient dense, high in potassium, high in a few other things, high in fiber. So yeah, that actually is a pretty good carb source. But you don't have to eat all sweet potatoes all day long. With fats. Good old fats. I think fat quality has taken a few different directions over the course of history. At first, it was saturated fat. Saturated fat was like the deadly killer, and you know, it was probably the worst thing possible for you. And then we found out, well, saturated fat really isn't that bad. I mean, most of the problems with saturated fat are just people that are fat and eat high saturated fat diets. People that are healthy and eat saturated fat does absolutely nothing to you. And then, you know, we were told butter's really bad because of the whole saturated fat thing, so let's make margarine. We're going to make margarine. This is going to be the best thing you can have. Well, then that kind of backfired on us, because in order to make margarine, you have to make trans fats. And then we realized this hydrogenated oil that was man-made, created, was 10 times worse than saturated fat ever was. So we basically did that to ourselves. So that was kind of the first side of the fat story. Then the second side, on the backhand side, is the omega-3, omega-6 debate. And people tend to think that, and this is true, our diets today are very, very high in omega-6. And people kind of warned us of that. And that's why the omega-3 supplementation, you know, fish oils, kind of became popular. And it's another benefit. Helps inflammation. Because omega-6, when you have a really, really high omega-6 intake compared to omega-3, it's pro-inflammation. But even that point, I feel, is a little overblown, and I don't think we have to worry about it quite as much as kind of the people want you to think. However, omega-3s are an excellent fat source, and they're essential, so you need to get those in. There's, I highly, highly recommend omega-3 supplementation, because you're probably not going to be eating salmon every day. You're probably not going to be eating, high omega-3 sources, and from an animal source, because another thing is from a plant source, like flaxseed, is not as good. Our bodies can't really absorb that very well. So you really need to get the omega-3s from an animal source. Just a little overview of the video. There's no real definition to clean eating. It's damn near impossible to come up with a good definition for it. What really matters is the numbers, and in context of your overall diet. Any food can be good, and any food can be bad. If you're hitting protein, carbohydrate, fat, calorie, and fiber goals, which you should be anyways, even if you're a complete bro, which there is nothing wrong with being a complete bro and eating eggs, oatmeal, chicken, and sweet potatoes for 6 meals a day. As long as you're tracking it, measuring it, and hitting macronutrient and calorie goals. I have no problem with that. You can do that if that's your choice. It's not. I don't think it's not more optimal than the same guy who eats, a little bit more freely. But again, if that's what hits your macros with, do whatever you want to do. But really, what we come to realize is there's really no debate. There's really no debate. And this will be episode 3 of the Flexible Dieting series. I hope you guys are enjoying these videos. I'm going to leave you with, I can't make a clean eating versus dirty eating video without introducing the official food of flexible dieting, or if it fits your macros. Pop-Tarts. This is my personal favorite Pop-Tart. It's not even a special edition or nothing. You can get it at Walmart any time of the year, but the chocolate chip cookie dough. This is my ultimate favorite. These are my favorite. Let me know in the comment section, what is your favorite Pop-Tart? Do you agree with me with the chocolate chip cookie dough? Do you like it? Let me know what you think about this one. And what is your favorite? Until next time, Flexible Dieting Series, Episode 3, in the books. Episode 4 will be coming up within the next week. Thanks, guys.